All right, guys, we're live, episode 5 of the Adventure RX podcast. We have my friend Pete Nelson here today. Pete is the owner of SISU Lifestyle and SISU Saunas. He's also a ultramarathon runner, and I would consider you a hybrid athlete. We'll get into some of that as we go. I'm really excited to chat with Pete. Some of the events he's been hosting in the Cleveland area have been really, really fun for the community, and we'll have a little chat with Pete today. Pete, how's it going, buddy?
I'm good. Thanks for the introduction, and super grateful for the opportunity to jump on here with you.
Yeah, sure, man. We met a couple years ago during the inaugural event, one of the hardest runs and I think most fun running events in the Cleveland area. Can you tell us a little bit about on Helen Hogsback?
Yeah, for sure. So Helen Hogsback, I'm glad that you felt that way because the whole point of Helen Hogsback is for people to just really get after a nasty, gritty, but fun race experience. And it's meant to be social, but it's all rooted in giving back. What I like to say, giving forward. So Helen Hogsback, actually, the premise behind it, my father was is still an ultra marathon runner, and he's ran 155 marathons or greater of distance over the last 12 years. And 2 years ago, he got hit with cancer, tongue cancer. He used to be a chain smoker, so it caught up with him. And the day that he went in to get the cancer removed, he also had a stroke. And during that bout, the cancer surgery was 12 hours long. So it was just this really brutal stroke, surgery, the whole bit. And so he had to end up relearn how to walk, relearn how to speak with a new tongue that they had to create for him. And you could only imagine what that perspective would be like if you're 60 years old and you went your entire life with clean health, you're active, you're doing the right things. And so it's the ultimate grit / perseverance story. And it's like what I like to say, SISU in its essence is perseverance, tenacity, bravery, and grit. That's what the literal definition means. So I always like to say that my old man is the living definition of SISU. So we created Helen Hogsback out of seeing what my dad went through. And that's the hill that him and I would do a bunch of our runs on together. And the 12 hours max distance run is signifying for the 12 hours that he was in surgery. And 100% of the proceeds for registration donation go to cancer patients in need who cannot afford their medical costs. Originally, our goal was 10 to 15 people year one. We ended up with 92.
Yeah.
And then year two, we thought we were going to have 130. We ended up with 225.
Yeah.
So our goal for this year is 500 people and raising $52,000. And we've got
I think you guys could get there. It's such a unique event, and the up and down portion of that hill. I mean, it's not an easy route, but everyone, sees each other, high fives, hugs, everyone on teams hanging out up top, taking a break. So you guys got the sauna set up, the cold plunges set up. It's a really cool event, man. I congratulate you on the success on that one. So year 3, give a shout out. Do you have a date yet for year 3?
Yeah, so we announced registration launches on March 1, and then August 23rd is the date this year.
Gotcha.
This year it's Forged by SISU, so it's this really awesome SISU curated event. BPN will be activating with us, All Day Running Company, While on Earth, and Roan. So we've got a number of really large brands that want to be a part of it to amplify like the message and the impact and see what we could all do together.
Yeah, that's incredible. From that first year, now you're getting these major sponsors. How cool, man. Who would have thought, I figured it would grow.
That's been life the last couple of years, man. I just want to keep doing the right thing and I can live with the results, man.
Exactly. You mentioned grit as part of SISU Sauna, and we'll get into the sauna talk in a bit. What do you consider grit? For me, grit is seeing patients, maybe it's post-op or after a major injury, and they just keep showing up and whittling away at whatever they're dealing with, knee or ankle or shoulder pain. And, it's inspiring for me to see some of these patients really going through it. But what does grit mean to?
It's a really good question. And the easiest way for me to conceptualize what grit means and ultimately like what SISU means is when it's time to quit and it's time to give up and your back's up against the wall and there's no odds against you, or all the odds are against you. That to me is grit. Taking that scenario, you're in that situation and figuring out a way to get out of it, to not only better yourself and to have the ideal outcome out of a really not ideal situation and ultimately winning. And I think that having more people understand like what winning feels like, especially when your back's up against the wall, it helps you develop grit. And I'm a big believer of, obviously, like self-inflicted grit is great, but to me, the best times in life are, and the best memories in life are the ones where plans go off script and you have to display grit. And that's well beyond fitness. It's as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, as a friend, family member. There's a lot of adverse situations that we all face, and grit really comes out when you really want to quit and you have to figure out a way to make it happen.
Right. I love that definition. It's when things go wrong. I mean, things go wrong in life, right? Everyone's dealing with something, and it's how you respond, right? There's fight or flight. You can run or you can get after it and put your head down and persevere per se. So I love that, Pete. As part of the definition or the motto for SISU, give me a little more info about SISU Sauna, SISU lifestyle. What's the mission and where do you see it going from here?
So I'm a big believer of, as we were just saying, getting more people to understand that grit is just part of life. And while it is important to be able to, put one foot in front of the other and do the hard work, it's also important to have a great time along the way and choose things that are purposeful and fulfilling to you that give you genuine joy and happiness, but requires you to put in a little bit of elbow grease in. That's what really Sisu embodies to us. And so for our brand and what we're looking to do is we're looking to forge grit and connection and fulfillment in households all across the United States. And it just so happens through this community that we're building that we do sell saunas. And the saunas are, at least to us, like the catalyst to unplugged time with great people, with friends, people you may not even know, and creating great conversation that extends well beyond the sauna and that leaks into your runs, into your workouts, into your family life, into business, the whole bit. So obviously we all know the incredible benefits of sauna and a lot of the research coming out. But when you look at the actual subjectivity to sauna and what it's doing for people, we just need more people to feel that, not even euphoria, but just more so that sense of fulfillment that sauna does bring after a session, even during a session where things do get tough and your head goes down and it just gets really, really difficult. Like, can you persevere and be able to stay in that sauna another 3 to 5 minutes longer? And I think that there's a lot of great analogies from great sauna and Sisu experiences that we're developing to what you do out in the real world.
Yeah, sure. I never thought of it that way, where you're, unless you go in alone, you're with a group or at least one other person and you're persevering together through that. I'm a limited sauna user. That's why I'm lucky to chat with you today. Hopefully you can sell me on one. But yeah, the research on sauna immersion is crazy right now. Some of the cardiovascular studies, I know I follow you on social media, a few other healthcare people on social media posting the current research on it, and it's really quite amazing. You're more up to date on it on myself. If you had to just give a summary of the recommended volume, temperature for the most benefit. Let's say, we're all tight on time, Pete, so I'm not going to be able to, most people won't be able to do a crazy amount of time in that. So what would be your snapshot on correct volume, get the best benefit for your buck, I guess, best bang for your buck?
Best bang for your buck with the sauna is 4 times weekly, 15 to 20 minutes at a time at 180 to 190. The
Gotcha.
minimum effective dose for sauna really starts at 5 minutes at 176. As you become more heat acclimated and heat adapted, then you have to increase that temperature threshold. All the observable benefits that people are seeing go upwards of 214 degrees, but you have to be elite to be at that temperature
Be
range.
doing that, yeah.
Certainly. So what you're looking at is a traditional sauna, not an infrared sauna, minimum 176 for at least 15 to 20 minutes at a time. You don't need to extend it past 30 minutes and do so 4 times weekly. And that'll definitely increase. It's showing for increased or decreased all-cause mortality rates, decreases in dementia, Alzheimer's cases, improvements in sleep, improvements in VO2 max, the whole bit. It's really astonishing like what sauna therapy is doing. But this is just something that people in Finland, people over in Europe have been doing for so many years. It's just now getting researched.
Right,
And
exactly.
it shows you like why they've been so healthy as well. They've been very, very consistent, and it's a way better alternative than going to the bars on a Friday or Saturday night and
Yeah, for
waking
sure.
up feeling a little off.
Why would you choose? So you guys went with more of a traditional sauna setup as far as versus infrared, or red light therapy is big now as well. Why did you go your route versus maybe an easier or cheaper route with the infrared or the red light?
We started to view infrared as a solid stepping stone to traditional sauna, but the
Okay,
evidence that has continued to come out, the peer-reviewed evidence, the large research studies being done are showing the effectiveness of traditional sauna and not infrared. So infrared's a newer technology. Really, it's near and far infrared wavelengths penetrating the skin, and then that helps increase the internal body temperature. So it naturally reduces in fever from those infrared wavelengths. It's not necessarily the room heating up, it's more so the waves penetrating the skin.
gotcha.
Whereas a traditional sauna, it's coils heating rock heats the room, and your body induces a fever as it adjusts to the actual heat environment and like the hot environment around you. So infrared, the max temp it usually gets is 150, sometimes 140, and in
Okay,
infrared saunas, the hottest I've ever seen in infrared is 160.
gotcha.
It doesn't mean that it's not effective, but for all the benefits that people are touting about sauna therapy, it's always being linked to traditional sauna therapy. The main
Gotcha.
things I would say are in argument for infrared are skin health. We're seeing more and more evidence on red light therapy being a huge factor for helping skin abrasions, skin diseases, skin health, the whole bit. It's great for depression. I think that a lot of that is linked to people being off their phone in the sauna and just you're in a 3x3 or a 5x5 hut basically,
Yeah.
and you have a moment to decompress. Obviously, that there's the same benefit to traditional sauna therapy on that. And if you do stay in long enough, say 45, 50, 60 minutes, you could get that heat adaptation that you would typically get in a traditional sauna, but you just have to be in there for a very, very long time.
A longer time. Yeah, they don't. Sounds like they don't get to that temperature that you need for that dosage, at least to see the benefits that you mentioned.
I would love to eventually figure out a way to incorporate red light therapy with traditional sauna, but that's not a this year thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now you did this Antarctica race. You won it, right? It was ultra. Was it a 50K?
Crazy. Yeah, I still remember being in TSA in Cleveland with my father. This was we had to push back our Antarctica trip by 1 year as a result of my father's cancer bout and stroke, and we learned how to man. I remember just being like, man, Dad, I'm just like an accessory to you this trip. Like, let's make this a great trip for you. And obviously,
Right.
I'm excited to go see Antarctica and experience it. But I did not go in being like, man, I'm gonna go win this ultra marathon. It was so memorable. It feels like yesterday. It's actually coming up about a year ago now
Okay.
when the ultra happened, but it was roughly 4 days of travel between Cleveland, Ohio to Buenos Aires and Ushuaia, Argentina, and then it took 48-ish hours to get across the Drake Passage
Got it.
boat, and everybody was heavily medicated on that boat journey. And we
I'm
got
sure.
down there, and the first full day was the ultra and the marathon. And I remember seeing some of the proposed times, thinking once we got down there to Argentina, and then on the boat, some of the proposed times for some of the runners, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I could make top five. Once 3, 2, 1 went, I had this gut feeling that I could potentially pull off some sort of miracle. And it was really cool. You started off at, if I remember correctly, the Argentinian research base in Antarctica, and then we ran to the Chilean research base and back, and then to the Chinese research base and back. And that lap there and back was roughly 6 miles. And so we did it 5.5 times or so. And it was so muddy. It was cold. It was like 20s. It was their summer, but it was 20s.
Okay.
It was muddy. There was a recent melt of the ice and the snow the day prior. So you're running through these incredibly deep, large like trenches of mud, and it was memorable, man. And
Yeah,
I just
that's
I
an
remember finishing
experience.
up being like, man, this was so fun. And they were like, man, you need to get back on the boat and go warm up. I didn't look good. I was really shivering, unlike I had ever shivered before.
Okay.
So they put me on a Zodiac, one of those rubber boats, and took me over to like our main boat. And I took a shower, and I had a hot coffee and ate a little bit of food, and They didn't want me to go back onto the mainland and get back into Zodiac to go see the rest of the runners with my father. They're just like, just go warm up. And so
Yeah.
as everybody was trying to come back on the boat, it started to hit that, like, man, what a wild day. And that was the
Great.
inaugural Antarctica 50K ultra. And next thing you know, like a few days later, we're getting interviews and it's just like, what is going on, man? So it was cool. And it was so fun, and to be able to do it with my father.
Yeah, that's great, man. What the heck kind of shoes did you wear? Were you in boots or running shoes or
No,
what?
there was Hoka Speed Goats. Actually, those were I'm notorious for running my shoes into the ground. I probably put 800 to 1,000 miles on pairs of shoes. And I know I need to throw them away earlier or dispose of them, but I don't want to spend money on shoes.
Right. Shoes are not cheap.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just bought a new pair of Hokas. They're the Mach 6s. So I just had a great tempo run just prior to this podcast, actually.
Nice.
And I'm just flying in these shoes, and I'm like, man, this is what a good new like carbon plated shoe feels
Yeah.
like. And so I swear I probably had 800 or so miles on those Hoka Speed Goats, and they were, as you can imagine, with all the mud, they were just so bad. I threw them into a garbage bag, and I just threw them away on the boat when I got back. And I don't know where those shoes are now, but I threw them
Just
away in
trash.
Antarctica.
Yeah, man. How'd you get into running? You're a basketball player growing up, I read, and people like to run, but not that many people like to do the kind of running you like to do. Take
Yeah.
me down that path. Like, was it more of a natural thing for you?
So I started actually running when I was 17. My father, he was 48 years old at the time. He quit chain smoking at 48 and decided to start running, started doing 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and then a marathon during that first year. Now, granted, my father's athletic ability was substantial. His first mile, or his first ever time mile, was on a track as a senior in high school, and he ran a 4:30. And so he was always stayed in shape, playing basketball, lifting, running, the whole bit. So it came natural to him. But he signed up for this 50K called the Buckeye Buster 50K, which is down in Salt Fork State Park. And he's like, you should just do this with me. I'm like, all right, sure, let's do it. And I remember vividly just how bad I hurt 16 miles in. I didn't train for it or anything. And I'm halfway through, and I looked at my dad, and I told him I wanted to quit, and just 100% like, I'm done, like, this is a bad idea. And he looked at me, and lack of better words, he called me out hard and was just like, you're my son, like, you don't give up. And
Yeah, yeah.
so I continued on, and I remember hallucinating a little bit. I was running on 2 hours of sleep because we were at the Indians game the prior night, dollar hot
Oh,
dog.
man.
It was not, it was
Dollar
not,
hot dog night?
yeah, man.
No wonder
So I
you're
remember,
hallucinating.
yeah. I remember, so 17 years old, sobbing, crying, coming across the finish line.
You're just sweating hot dog juice. Just hot
Yeah,
dog
for
juice.
sure. And that was the hook, line, and sinker. There was a couple weeks later, my dad was doing his first 100 miler down in the Outer Banks of North Carolina called the Graveyard 100. It was a 50 mile there and back, or 50 miles down, 50 miles back. And so I crewed him for the last 50 of that one. And that was my first 50 miler as like a crew pacer, if you will. And I learned a lot about grit and everything that I needed to know right there. Remember, like, seeing my dad nearly crawl across the
Yeah,
finish line.
man.
I remember popping some of his blisters on the bottom of his feet because they were just so nasty. It's kind of odd that, like, we're attracted to running. You see, like, the amount of pain and the amount of work you go through, but I think that there's something on the other side of running that unlocks a lot of really cool opportunities for people, both mentally, physically, and relationship wise. So that's like where I really got my start, and was just always through 3 to 4 ultras on the books each year. Never really trained for it at all, and maybe ran a few times a week, but I really relied on CrossFit training. And then I didn't really start taking my actual running career seriously, or my running pursuit seriously, maybe until 4 years ago. And that's where I started
Gotcha.
to really amplify it. And I ran my first ever road marathon last September. So my next road marathon will be this coming October.
Which one are you running in?
I'm running the Steamtown Marathon in Pennsylvania in
Nice.
Scranton. So
Very cool.
it's a downhill and fast course, and we'll see. I tend to stay at like a 210 or so body weight, but I think for me to do what I want to do, I'll probably need to be right at like 200 to
Gotcha.
195
Yeah, cut a
to
little
go
bit.
sub 255 or so on the race.
Yeah, I think running is such a good community, man. I met so many good people. I was a soccer player growing up, and I would run a few days a week. Nothing organized, nothing super consistent. And as I got into treating more runners, doing these events, I have helped at your event, some of the bigger Cleveland Marathon, other events throughout the summer. You just meet, so many cool people and these race organizers and in management and everything. And finally, I got peer pressure by about 10 patients. They're like, man, if you're going to treat us, you got to join us in one of these. So I finally did my first half last fall, which was a lot of fun. So I'm hoping to do another one. I'm dealing with the knee right now, but I'm hoping to do another half in the fall. My plan was to do two halves this year and then the following year do a full, but just gotta be gritty, like you're saying. Do the half this fall, see how it goes, and then hopefully get the 26 done next year at some point.
I mean, I think the reality with running is that because it is a repetitive motion in sport, injuries do creep up. So the strength training, the rehab, the prehab, the stuff that you preach as a physical therapist, they help so much, especially with bulletproofing your body and making you feel strong when you run. But injuries are part of sport, and running specifically, like the way that, for me, I'm getting over a high hamstring tendinopathy on my right side. So for me, that's not the best injury to have as a runner, because a tendinopathy is really hard to heal, especially in the hamstrings because you rely on them so much. But I make some modifications and you figure it out, and you do your PT, you do your strength work, you do your soft tissue work, you get recovery and your treatment in, and you'll get back at it. And I've seen myself make tons and tons of progress. I'm able to still go out and hit. This past weekend I had a 13-mile run at a 7:58 pace, which would have lit me up about a month ago with the injury, but I was
Nice.
100% good during. Woke up the next day feeling great. Today I was running tempo, so low sevens, and felt really good as well. And I
Nice.
think a lot of that is attributed to just doing the right things and doing the things that most people don't want to do.
Right. No, it's not
They help.
easy. Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into it. Uh, some of the basics I preach to any athlete I'm working with, get your sleep, fix your diet, 80
Yeah,
20, 80-20 at least, don't eat McDonald's every day. Hydrate. Are you drinking your water? Are you doing the supplementation? I mean, that's like the base, right? That's like, if you can't get that stuff right, the rest of it is fluff. You can do the dry needling, you can do the scraping, you can do whatever, the strength training. But if you're sleeping 4 hours a night, you're extremely stressed, you're hunched over at a computer all day doing computer work. It's like, there's about four things you can start with. So I like to preach the basics, the base of the pyramid, the foundation has to be there. Or the
People
rest of it is, going to be much more challenging to make improvements in.
Yeah, I think so many people always stress the small details and stress the more complex things. And don't get me wrong, like the details, and there's a need for some complexity here and there, but ultimately what works is the simple things done consistently over time that produce the most massive outputs. And I see that across every single bucket of my life. If I could just do the simple things really well and make sure like the things that I'm weak at, I'm not too weak to where it's pulling me down in other areas, and be around good people, I can live with that.
You mentioned being a father, being a husband, family man, you're an entrepreneur, you're an elite athlete. How do you balance all that, Pete? That's a lot on your plate.
I made a promise to myself that, so to me, I have five pillars in my life. It's my faith, it's my family, it's my fitness, it's my work, and it's my charitable giving, right? Or like the financial end. And I want to be strong in all of those. And as I'm looking across the board at a lot of the role models that I've had and a lot of the people I've looked up to, I've realized that there's a lot of people that are strong in one or two areas or three areas, but nobody's really been solvent in five of those. And don't get me wrong, like I think that it's not, I mean, it's definitely not easy, but I want to genuinely build a life that I'm evenly keeled across each of those buckets, and each of those buckets give me a ton of fulfillment. So, everything for me like starts with my faith and then leads into my family, my what I feel like I'm being called to do with my fitness, with work, work is ridiculously purposeful for me. I get to steward great relationships and steward a great product and business. And for us to be able to do that and be able to give back to the community, that's what really matters to me. So I figure out a way to do it through great systems, great people, and just do my best to time block wherever I can to protect my family time and not let the other stuff and all the noise bleed into the most important parts of my life.
Yeah, sure. I love that pillar analogy. That's really good. I gotta look at my own pillars and see where I'm mismatched there. That's really cool, Pete. What's next for you? What's chapter 5 or 6, whatever you're on now? You've been so busy. What do you see happening in 2025?
Yeah, so from a high level, we've got 2 kids and they're everything to us. So getting more time with my kids and my wife matters to me. So whether that's through just at home, the activities that we do, getting them out in the community, our travels, that matters to me. From the fitness aspect, I'm doing the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim this year. I'm doing my first High Rocks this year. I'm doing a road marathon this year. I'm doing a Mount Whitney summit. And I'm doing Helen Hogsback, the 12-hour. My goal is to do 60 hours there. Or sorry, 60 miles, not 60 hours. 60 miles.
I'm not joining you on the 60-hour one, man. No way.
I'll be like, where are you, Nick?
I'm sleeping, Pete.
Yeah. And then for SISU, we've got a lot of stuff that we're working on right now. We're launching a SISU cold plunge this year, a SISU outdoor shower. Our accessories and merch go out. We have new heaters going out in the market.
Nice.
We have our SISU Impact Foundation that just got off the ground, or SISU Impact Program, which every single month we're gifting a sauna to a veteran or a cancer patient in need
I love that.
who wouldn't be able to financially afford a sauna otherwise. My wife and I just started up the Nelson Family Foundation nonprofit, which Helen Hogsback will live underneath.
Beautiful.
That's all set. So we got all that, and the rest is I just want to continue to just live a fulfilling life and do my best to stay present, because I know I know for a fact that it's not easy, because I live it every day, that it's so easy to just get caught into the weeds and the details.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to pull yourself out and reflect a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of distraction, and self-reflection is very hard in this day of age. It's something that I try to do a few times a week. But yeah, man, it's tough. But it sounds like you're balancing everything well. SISU's great. Helen Hogsback's really taken off. I'm excited to see, what you can get up to, this 2025.
We'll see.
Get all those races done. Yeah, man, I'm excited for you, and I'm glad we got to have this talk. I'll link the foundation and some of the info for Helen Hogsback in the description when I post this. Yeah, man, appreciate having you on.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate the opportunity. It was great chatting, and can't wait to see you again soon.
Yes, sir.